Okay, so here we go. All right, guys, welcome to the first ever podcast, Metal Klaw Podcast. I am Zach from Zach vs. the Blu-ray Mountain, and my partner in crime over here is Tim from TheLateReviews. And he's actually not late today. He's actually early. So go ahead. Introduce yourself, Tim.
Thanks, man. Dude, this is so awesome. Me and you have been talking metal outside of YouTube for a while, and one thing, it's hard to find people who like metal. So, Zach, I'm super stoked that we're doing this. This first episode, Metal Klaw, appropriately named. So probably the best thing we should do is to start off by introducing ourselves. So, Zach, I'll let you give everyone a little background of how you got into metal, what bands you like, stuff like that.
Okay, so my story of metal is strange. When I was kid, I was like 6 years old. First tape I ever owned was something that my dad got me, and it was Ozzy Osbourne's Diary of a Madman. And I loved it. Absolutely loved Ozzy. On another album, wasn't that one, Zombie Stomp, loved that song. Used to listen to it in my parents' basement. I was a strange child. I'm still strange. Those of you that know me know I am a strange person. Welcome to my life. It gets weird. But then I kind of fell out of metal for a really long time. My parents got divorced when I was 6 years old, and my mom used to listen to country music a lot. And we didn't have much money growing up, so I didn't go out and get my fix in metal because I completely forgot about it. And being that we didn't have much money, and it was the late 90s, mid 90s, there wasn't internet yet, and I didn't get a computer until I was 12. And back then, that was 2002. Internet was shit. So,
It was.
So there was that, and then I didn't really start getting back into harder music until I was probably 16, 17 years old. Started listening to, more of the alt-rock bands back in the day, like Creed, those kind of bands. I like Disturbed, Godsmack. I loved Godsmack. I Stand Alone is one of my anthems.
Oh, that's the one from the I
Scorpion
Stand
King.
Alone. Yeah. And what's the one from the Navy commercial? Dun 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 dun.
Awake.
Yeah, that's a sick
It's
song.
off of Faceless. I love that album.
That's high octane.
But I didn't really get into metal until I was probably a junior in high school. And probably the scariest dude in my class, his name was Drew. And he had like really, really long hair, always wore these obscure t-shirts that I would never know was an actual metal band. He was on the swim team. I joined the swim team. He joined the swim team at the same time. He was a couple years before me. His mom was his assistant swim coach. And I will remember this forever. He invited me to go to an Ozzy concert with him because I kind of liked rock music. Not too many other guys on the team were into that kind of stuff. And he's like, hey, my uncle won tickets to see Ozzy down in Washington. He can't go. He gave the tickets to me. You like this kind of music? You like Ozzy, right? I was like, yeah. Do you want to go to this concert?
That's awesome.
And he goes, and I said, yes, of course. Who's going to turn down the opportunity to see Ozzy? And here's the thing that's going to make you almost fall out of your seat. I saw Ozzy and Rob Zombie in the same concert.
Whew, damn.
And In This Moment was also there as the opening act. So that was my first metal concert, Ozzy and Rob Zombie.
That's amazing.
And then after that, he started introducing me to melodic death metal, progressive metal, black metal. I've always been a fan of thrash, like Metallica, which we will get into later.
Yeah.
But my taste developed. I started out as a rock guy, and then got more into metal. I like melodic metal, like Trivium, Amon Amarth. I like death metal, Behemoth, The Satanist, one of my favorite albums of all time.
Beautiful album.
It's so good. I love that album. My daughter likes it as well. She metal claws. But that's pretty much my background with metal.
That's awesome. there's a little overlap in some areas with us, but what I think is really cool about, this question in general is like everyone goes about it differently. And there's so much metal out there that there's so many bands that, Zach, you might like that I literally have never listened to. I've only heard of. And I think that's the coolest thing. Like the fact that you're that guy who you weren't really even like friends with became friends with you because of metal, and he introduced you into that shit. So my story is a little bit different. I still don't really have many people who like metal in my life, which is, metal is a very solo thing. You could totally do it on your own and have a great time. You can go to like a metal show by yourself and it's not weird. Kind of like movies. And so I grew up listening to pop punk and like Blink-182, Good Charlotte.
Yeah, I remember that.
Sum 41. I mean, I'm a product of that. And before that, I was a product of Korn, Slipknot, all that new metal stuff. Limp Bizkit. Oh my God. I loved as a kid. And actually, the one I can owe the most to is Linkin Park. Meteora, I think, is their best album of all time.
I love Hybrid Theory.
That's a whole nother episode right there.
Yeah.
So that's what I grew up on. That's the stuff I was interested in. Whenever I got the Now That's What I Call Music CDs, I would skip through all the garbage in the beginning and go to like Fuel and, like, remember Fuel?
Yeah, I remember Fuel. But
yeah, dude.
There's a quick thing I wanted to tell you about. Speaking of Meteora and Linkin Park. Linkin Park was one of the first metal bands to get me into anime.
Oh, dude, their
one video, I think it was off the Meteora album, was completely done in anime.
Oh no, Breaking the Habit.
Yeah, that album.
Yeah. So not only did music get me into stuff like that, but it also gets you into movies and art and all that stuff. So I was very heavy into that. Then I discovered System of a Down, which got me into heavier, weirder stuff. And then I kind of broke off. I loved My Chemical Romance, and
I love them too.
Yeah, I like their first two albums the most.
Second album.
Oh, Three Cheers is phenomenal. Their heavier songs definitely. I was like, I'm interested in like palm muting. Like, like there's certain sounds you like. So I always had it in my mind that that's what I like. I've always, though, whenever I'm into something else, there's always punk rock. Punk rock is like my favorite genre. AFI.
December Underground is my favorite album.
That's a great album. Sing the Sorrow kind of changed it all for me. So from there, this is where it's like I kind of was in that area for a long time, and then I discovered Job for a Cowboy.
They are awesome now, by the way.
Dude, they changed their sound so much.
So heavy.
The first thing I heard, though, was their EP with like Knee Deep, Entombment of a Machine. And I'll never forget sitting in front of my computer listening to it, and my heart was racing. I've never really heard heavy music like that. And from then on, I swear, like double bass was like my addiction. And from then on, I've just discovered tons of stuff. Thanks to the internet, I'm kind of glad you mentioned that, like earlier on, it was harder to discover bands. But now with the internet, YouTube, whatever, I would look up breakdown compilations. And so I basically went from, I started with deathcore, then went to post-hardcore with like clean vocals and stuff like that. I kind of now grew out of post-hardcore, and I just absolutely love tech death. I love deathcore still. I love death metal, old school. I love thrash, just like you, man.
Thrash will always be like one of my favorites.
Thrash is just fun.
So many cool thrash bands that never get named because of the big four. I mean, you have Overkill. And you can say that Volbeat is a thrash metal band. Because if you go back to their first album, Guitar Gangsters and Cadillac Blood, no, that's their second album. What is the name of the first album?
They're more bluesy though, right? Like thrash has so many different.
There's some songs on Shady Ladies, their third album. I can't remember the name of it, but Hangman's Body Count is probably one of the best songs from them. And has so much thrash influence, and the reason why is because they have replaced one of their guitar players with the former lead guitar player from Anthrax.
Oh shit! Okay, that's awesome.
And when they were in their early stages, they used to tour with Metallica. So thrash is very close to those guys. And Metallica knew that. That's why they were on their tour. Mm-hmm. And they're a great band. Their frontman is insanely talented. I've never seen anyone drink a whole bottle of Jack Daniels and still be able to form coherent sentences.
To be honest, I've actually never gotten into them. I think now it's a good excuse for me to. They've toured with bands I like CKY and stuff, but I've actually never given them a shot.
They're very good.
Metal is so big, man. Aside from the big four you mentioned, Overkill, awesome. I'm not big into their vocals, but like in terms of thrash, really quickly, what do you look for? What do you like? Do you like the party thrash? Do you like the kind of power metal thrash?
I like straightforward, gritty, balls deep thrash metal. You know what I'm saying? Like jungle rot. You know what I mean? Like super, super dark, heavy, that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Like I'm a big fan of double bass, and I like the sound of poppy drums. Not like pop drums, but like the way Trivium's drums sound on Shogun. Very poppy, light drums, but still heavy at the same time. Double bass, it's badass.
When Travis left Trivium, everything changed because you really realize how much of an influence he had on that band. The drums were so good on Ascendancy, Shogun, The Crusade. I'm the same. I kind of like the more punk influenced thrash, like Municipal Waste. Like I like that. That's why, like for me, I like earlier Metallica more than
early Metallica. Yeah.
But
how early Metallica? Are you talking Ride the Lightning or Master of Puppets, or are you going way back to?
Everything up until the Unforgiven. I love that. Sorry. And Justice for All. That's the last album.
Justice for All came out before that one. But the last, a lot of Metallica fans will say, the last true Metallica album is the Black Album, and that's when things started to change.
We'll get into that in a little bit.
If we want to talk
damn it, Zach.
It's so bad. I'm sorry. So, you were talking about punk influences. You like the early Metallica more than the later Metallica.
Yeah, and same goes for Megadeth. I like
listen to old Megadeth.
What the fuck?
No, it's not that I don't like the music. I don't like the quality of the music.
Okay.
I like Holy Wars, Let the Punishment Due, Rust in Peace. I love that album.
Rust in Peace is a beautifully mixed album, too.
I have the remaster. It's amazing. Anything before that, I do love early Metallica, or not, early Megadeth, sorry. I do love early Megadeth. And don't get me wrong, they're one of my favorite bands of all time. You know this. I've told you a million times. It's just their production on their early albums is so bad. I want them to do a better re-release. They've done re-releases before in the past for their first like 3 or 4 albums, and they're just not up to snuff.
Yeah. I mean that's a big problem. Like earlier, like Kill 'Em All from Metallica and all that, like still sounds really, really good. How about the other big four? Do you like? I'm not a big Anthrax fan. And I am just now becoming a Slayer fan. I don't know. It just never dawned on me until now how amazing they are.
I never got into Slayer. And it's just, look at me, I'm Kerry King. I have a whammy bar. And like, I'm sorry. It's
not about that.
Into them.
It's about the lyrics. And
their drummer is amazing, though. I love their drummer.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
They're fast, blistering. To me, it's about the riffs. Like, it's not like, the whammy bar I could do without, actually. The lyrics are just grotesque and hateful, and dude, the riffs are like, I'm a big sucker for also triplet palm muting, like so
galloping.
Yeah, you got me on that. So,
a funny story about Anthrax. I didn't really like them at all. I knew who Scott Ian is, obviously.
Yeah, I know his beard, you know.
And he's the rhythm guitar player, and he's the most popular person in the band.
Yeah.
He was always in the forefront of my mind when I'm thinking about Anthrax, but
Same here.
I never really got into them. I didn't really start liking them until Metallica put out that Big Four concert.
Yeah. Did you go to that, by the way?
No, this is the one where they were in Sofia, Bulgaria, and they had the 4 bands do 4 complete concerts.
Mm-hmm.
And I have the DVD, which is amazing, by the way. Get it if you don't have it. Anthrax performed, and they were great. They were they had the shortest set. They went on first, and then Slayer, Megadeth, and Metallica obviously went on last.
Yeah.
And they were just great. They were on point. Singer was on point. Everything sounded great. Just really tight, and I really liked it. So I went out and checked out their newest album, which was really good.
Oh, I did actually I gave that one listen, and it actually sounded, when a new band of course we're going to actually talk about that. When a new band puts out music and they're trying to maybe they're trying to expand on their sound. Anthrax, that new album totally sounded like something that would have came out 20 years ago. It was really cool.
Oh, yeah.
That's the yellow one, right?
Yeah, the yellow one.
Yeah. The only song I like by them is Pray for the Indians or something.
Pray for the Indians is great. And then another good song from them is Medusa. Medusa is a really good song, too.
Okay.
They played both of them at the concert. So, and you could pick that up really cheap. I got that from FYE for $9.
Yeah, no one's buying music anymore.
It's the full DVD concert, 2 discs.
Oh, okay.
Metallica's on their own disc, obviously.
I remember when that happened, and the video of Dave Mustaine and James Hetfield playing together and smiling and shit. That was sick.
It was great. They all went out and performed Am I Evil, and it was awesome. I thought as a metalhead, thought I would never see that ever.
Yeah.
But James Hetfield and Dave Mustaine hugging on stage was not as impactful as Dave Mustaine and Kirk Hammett hugging each other on stage.
Mm-hmm.
Because how would you like to be Kirk Hammett going in and replaying all of Dave Mustaine's solos for Kill 'Em All?
Yeah.
But back in the day, that really wasn't anything. But now, if you go back and think about it, replacing this legendary guitar player is just insane.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So now that we might as well talk about it. The main theme of this episode is Metallica. I will say that, Zach, you're probably a bigger fan of them than I am. So I hope you can fill in the blanks where I can't.
I got you.
But Zach, it was your idea. So this all rooted from their new song. So if you want to just give a little intro for those that don't know this song, and then kind of give a summary of some of their music from their career.
All right, I got you here. All right, so the song that was just released is off their upcoming album, Hardwired to Self-Destruct, which I absolutely love that title.
Nice album cover too. Really, really cool.
Yeah, I really like that. I don't know if that's the title for the single or the actual, or the cover for the single or the cover for the actual album.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's really cool. And the single is Hardwired. And I remember it came out a couple weeks ago, maybe 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think it came out at the end of August, actually.
And
August 20th or something.
Yeah, and I, for one, actually really liked it. I thought that it was fast, obscenely fast for them.
Agreed.
And near the end, a couple 20 seconds of the song just went to a whole nother level of fast, with Lars Ulrich hitting double bass at his age was great. It's just, he went to a level that I haven't seen in Metallica since Dyer's Eve off of Injustice for All.
I mean, he's displayed it in parts of certain albums. You know, like we know he's really talented. I would actually say that I don't know about you, but I mean, there's some really good skill aside from the snare on Saint Anger. I mean, he does have skill.
Yeah, I'm on the Metallica Wikipedia right now, and I was listening to a clip of Purify from Saint Anger, and minus the snare on that album, Purify had a really, really good groove. But that also comes from James Hetfield being one of the most underrated rhythm guitar players of all time. That dude is insanely good.
Agreed. Sidebar, there's a really good video of James Hetfield talking about how he learned to play guitar on Ultimate Guitar, I think it was. Or no, Guitar Center, sorry.
I've seen it.
Beautiful video, really inspiring. If you play guitar, I know, Zach, you do as well. Definitely check that video out. But, okay, so should we actually... Do you want to go through the discography, and then we can kind of full circle back to their new song and see?
Sounds like a plan. I got 4 vanilla Cokes lined up. I'm ready to go.
Okay, let's see if we can do this. So Kill 'Em All. Let's start from the beginning. We'll work our way up. 1983. To be honest, this is the one I don't listen to this one as much. I actually start with the album. Right before, hold on, I'm looking at the wrong fucking thing.
Don't worry, I'm on there too, looking around.
Okay, so Kill 'Em All, 1983. To be honest, I'm not as familiar with this one. I know the main songs off of it, so maybe you can talk about it a little bit more than I can.
I actually am a big fan of Kill 'Em All. It's the most different, other than Saint Anger, that they've ever sound.
Yeah, his vocals are vastly different. It's more punk as well.
Yeah, they're definitely more true to the punk sound that all those Bay Area bands were getting into. And when they first started coming out, I mean, it was all about trying to mix the sound of punk with British heavy metal.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it really comes through on the album. Songs like Phantom Lord and the Anastasia instrumental, the legendary Cliff Burton, probably one of my favorite bass players of all time. Died way too young. It's a tragic accident.
Did you see Through the Never, by the way?
Loved it.
Yeah, people say that's at the end, what's in the suitcase or whatever it is that Dane DeHaan has to get. That's Cliff Burton's soul.
So kind of pulling from Pulp Fiction there.
Yeah.
Because there's a small side note there. What's in the suitcase in Pulp Fiction? Is it the diamonds from Reservoir Dogs, or is it the soul of the main bad guy, Ving Rhames' character from Pulp Fiction? Because you notice that he has that bruise the bandage on the back of his neck. He's there talking talking to Bruce Willis in the bar.
Mm-hmm.
But side note, sorry. Pulp Fiction is one of my favorite movies. It just had to talk about that. You brought up the suitcase, and yeah, but
I think like Seek and Destroy and Hit the Lights are like some of the only few songs I know off this one. And what was the song they used in X-Men Apocalypse for?
I actually didn't watch X-Men Apocalypse yet.
You're not missing much. Okay.
Those trailers made that movie look to be so good, and apparently it sucks.
Hey, if you put a filter song in a trailer, it's gonna look pretty sick.
Well, Apocalypse looked cool. That's the
next
best
album,
you can say.
He looked okay. Next album we have Ride the Lightning. This is actually one of my favorite. I actually go to this album a lot. This is from 1984. I mean, not only do I also love Trapped Under Ice just from Guitar Hero. It was on Guitar Heroes.
Guitar Hero. Actually, it was on Guitar Hero Metallica.
Okay. I think it was on 4. I think it was on 4 or 3. First of all, Fight Fire with Fire, amazing opening track, so fast and crushing. For Whom the Bell Tolls, oh my god, Fade to Black.
Creeping Death.
Oh my god, dude, that riff.
I used to play, when I first started to learn how to play guitar, Creeping Death was one of the first songs I learned how to play because it's so fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Like that rhythm is so badass. It's like, you know, like there's good guitar riffs and then there's badass guitar riffs, and that's a badass guitar riff.
Are we safe to say that Metallica makes badass guitar riffs? Because some of their riffs you'll be hearing for the rest of our lives. And they're so simple but they're so melodic. And I think for me, Metallica differentiates themselves from everyone else, even Megadeth, or being purely metallic, being purely melodic. And especially that shows with their slow songs. That is like almost their staple. Fade to Black.
Fade to Black.
Beautiful song.
Couple side notes I forgot to mention.
Is it about Pulp Fiction?
No. It has to do with metal and Metallica. Kill 'Em All has Hit the Lights on it. One of my favorite covers of Hit the Lights is from Black Tide.
Oh, they're like a deathcore band, right?
Yeah, and
I
have their first album, which is straight thrash. Reminds me of early Megadeth, to be honest with you.
Really?
And listen to the first 2 songs off their first album. You will love them. And then one of my favorite covers of Fade to Black is from Disturbed. Disturbed's cover of Fade to Black is great.
I haven't heard that.
Oh my god, that's a great one. I mean, we could have a whole podcast talking about popular bands covering Metallica.
I mean, the first ones that come to mind is Master of Puppets by Trivium. From My Valentine did them too. They covered I think they covered Sanitarium and that's such a good song. We're not there yet.
And Master of Puppets.
Oh, okay. Well, actually, do you have anything else to say about Ride the Lightning?
I do. Ride the Lightning, it has some of the last song credits from Dave Mustaine. He's credited for writing Call of Cthulhu. And that's one of my favorite instrumentals ever, because I love the Cthulhian mythos from H.P. Lovecraft, and I will be ready when he comes to take over the world. I have my Cthulhu pop back there. I'm ready to go. And I just love the fact that even though there was bitter blood between them in the early formations of both bands, they still left his writing credit on the second album, even though he wasn't even on the first album.
Yeah, well, I thought he mainly helped on Kill 'Em All, but I think he wasn't in the recording. He was just in.
He played their live shows before the album came out.
Yeah. I love his reason on why he formed Megadeth. He's just like, I wanted to be faster and heavier than Metallica.
Good. And if you watch,
and he has succeeded.
I'll save it until after, because I have a very cool point there. So the next album is Metallica's Master of Puppets.
You guys can't see it right now, but I'm doing 2 metal horns. This is a perfect album.
It's great. I love it. It's a legendary album. It's a metal masterpiece.
Only 8 tracks.
Because they're all long.
Yeah.
Master of Puppets itself is almost 7 minutes long.
Yeah. When was the first time you ever heard this one?
Master of Puppets or the whole album?
The whole album.
Oh, Master of Puppets. This title track. Master of Puppets. I actually have a Master of Puppets t-shirt. I never wear it because it's too short anymore. It's too small. Cut the sleeves off of it to work out in, and I want to get another one. I have a Ride the Lightning t-shirt too. But I'm wearing my Ghostface t-shirt today. Which was hard to find. I actually found that at FYE. But the first time I ever heard Metallica was Sanitarium, off of this album, and it was on my way home from work. So I didn't really discover Metallica until I was probably 16, 17 years old.
Damn.
But do not underestimate what I like about them, because when I did discover them, all I did was read their Wikipedia page and listen to all their music. So it may have been late, but it was definitely a profound moment.
Oh, for sure. So you went like deep dive, like right from like discovering them to listening to all their music.
Yeah.
I'm kind of the opposite. I've heard, of course, we've all heard Enter Sandman, but that's later. And then I played Guitar Hero. Like I didn't really care about Metallica up until I heard Orion in the DC video. I don't know if you were into skateboarding, but the opening, I think one of the opening parts in that video, someone uses Orion, and it stuck with me ever since. And then I finally took a listen to this whole album. And I mean, honestly, if I were to listen to any song off this album, Battery is so, I want to smash my fucking face into a brick when I hear that song.
It's great. And it is super heavy, but one of my favorite songs off the album, and totally rivals Master of Puppets and Battery for one of the best songs on it, Disposable Heroes. So heavy. It's blisteringly heavy. I love that album. That song, the whole album.
Yeah. It's a perfect album. There isn't a song you would skip.
The two lesser songs, I guess, would be Damage Inc. and Leper Messiah. A lot of people don't talk about those two songs, but they are still very good compared to the rest of the album. But they are still really good from the band. As a whole, the whole album is just, it's brilliant. It's great.
Yeah, it is going to stand the test of time. The next album is ... and Justice for All from 1988. To be honest, this is one that like I'll listen to every once in a while, but I'll probably listen to the most popular songs off of it. I'm not as into this one. It's still heavy, which I really enjoy. It's still got that classic thrash. It's still got the straightforward melodic structure. A lot of, galloping and all that stuff, which I personally like, and I'll get into my thoughts later on
this
why the other stuff doesn't do it for me.
This is the mark of a lot of things from Metallica. This is the first album with Jason Newsted at bass, and this is probably the most progressive Metallica has ever been. My favorite song on the album is by far Shortest Straw. I love that song. I love that riff. It's the most melodic I think I've ever heard of them on the album. Of course, that thing gets insanely heavy near the end with Dyer's Eve and some of the other songs near the end of the album, which are also great. The instrumental is also really good as well. And some people don't say it's an instrumental because there's a poetry reading at the end. But I'm like, it's still an instrumental. He's not singing.
How cool is that? That Metallica, unlike, every one of their albums, they always have a slow song and typically an instrumental, like at least in the earlier stuff. It's so cool that a band can be referred to as such a heavy band, but also one of the most tender bands. Like the use of like classical guitar and like all of these soft instruments and just beautiful, beautiful guitar playing. Seriously, like this is cool and unique.
This is probably the most like straight up balls out they've ever been. And even their slow song, One, turns into a metal masterpiece at the end of it.
Oh.
So this is Metallica. I've always called this album Metallica's flawed masterpiece because of the production on this album. And a lot of people will say it's because of hazing and Jason Newsted was new to the band, blah, blah, blah. Metallica themselves, everyone else in the band even says that they are disappointed with the production on the album. Because there's almost inaudible bass. And if you've ever heard Injustice for Jason, which is a fan produced version of the album they boosted up the bass. And with his bass boosted, it's one of my favorite metal albums of all time.
I've actually never heard that. I might actually have to give that a shot. Maybe that's like maybe it's subliminally why I haven't gravitated towards this album as much.
And I actually like this album with the lowered bass, because I think it makes it more gritty with just hearing the guitars and not necessarily the bass in the background. I know you play bass a lot more than I do, so you understand that a little bit more.
I play like a guitar.
I actually got pretty good at using my fingers playing bass. I
can't do that. Well, you're closer to fucking Iron Maiden than I am. He's in a phenomenal bassist. Sidebar about One. Aside from it being on a Guitar Hero 3, phenomenal, amazing place to be introduced to that song as well. Sum 41, their guitarist Brown Sound is actually really into like Iron Maiden and Metallica and all this thrash stuff. Judas Priest, and on their album Chuck, the song 88, at the end of it, they pay homage by kind of putting in the end breakdown from One into that song, and it's sick. It's just sick.
If you've heard Sum 41 lately, they are a lot heavier now too.
Yeah, it's because the whole band left.
They actually covered Master of Puppets live in concert.
Yeah. And they also, they performed with Judas Priest as well during one of the award shows. Like they definitely have their place in this weird, mix. But
right. So after Injustice for All and the introduction of Jason Newsted as the newest bassist after a tragic accident with Cliff Burton in Germany, we have the Black Album.
Yeah. I'm a bit mixed on this one, to be honest. I actually don't mind this album. It has an interest, like, it's kind of like they just stopped writing in the same style, but this is still heavy and thrashy, but it's just a little bit more simple.
This is, in my opinion, where they went to appeal to more than just the standard metal audience. They wanted to bring in, and keep in mind, this is the early 90s. So they wanted to bring in the fans that were into Nirvana, Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, and more so Alice in Chains than the other bands. Because if you listen to Alice in Chains' first two albums, they're the closest to thrash and metal than any of those bands were. Just listen to the first Alice in Chains album. It's so devilishly dark.
Well, that's a really good point you bring up. Like, if you really think about when this came out, the fact that a lot of bands were progressing more towards getting radio play and like airplay on MTV and all that stuff. And I mean, the most popular Metallica song, arguably, is on this album. Enter Sandman. You could listen to that song in the grocery store now, and it's probably not as heavy. But yeah, a lot of bands like Soundgarden and all that were going towards this heavier, simpler, like, crotch rock type of guitar sound. And this is the beginning of that. And I think they still kept their old roots, but they also added in this simpler.
Yeah, and it definitely works, because if you go down through the track listing, you'll name hit after hit after hit. Enter Sandman, Sad But True, Unforgiven, Wherever I May Roam, Through the Never.
That's a good fucking song.
Is super underrated.
The lyrics are really
never
good.
Gets played on the radio.
Yeah,
I love that song.
Yeah, it is really good.
It's probably the heaviest song on that album. It has to be. And so a couple side notes about Wherever I May Roam. Jason Newsted actually played a 12-string bass on that album. On that song. A 12-string bass. There's also the beginning of the song, that huge like thunderclap in the background that you hear. That's the 12-string bass.
Oh shit! I can't even play 6 right.
And he's an insanely talented musician. His if you've never heard of his side, his main project, Newsted, is actually really good. He plays bass and sings on it. But it's pretty good. Reminds me of like a 90s just like groove rock, kind of like Pantera.
Okay.
I like it. It's pretty good.
I do like myself some Pantera. That's a whole nother podcast for you right there.
Right.
Let's move on though, because I feel like we can combine these two albums together. Is that?
I'm not even ready for these two albums. I'm just gonna let you talk about these right here.
If we're just
unless you want me to get into it.
I do, but if I just have a really quick comments on them. If we're going to combine them together and we call it a double album, I'm just going to have to tell you right now that Reload is better, in my opinion, than Load. Amazing cover art, by the way. If you don't know what it is, look it up.
I know what it is.
Yeah, just Google it. I'm not going to talk about it. This is where I kind of was starting to talk about with the Black Album, which is like they're starting to lose that fast edge, that punch yourself in the face edge, and they're going more towards this kind of anyone who likes hard rock can like it, which is kind of weird. It's like I never thought of Metallica as hard rock, and this is like a hard rock album.
Well, this is kind of where they were like, oh, going lighter on our last albums worked.
Yeah.
So let's just go full rock on these two albums and see what happens. I actually have to give them a round of applause for trying something new. Mm-hmm. What other band would try to completely change their sound?
Yeah.
When they're one of arguably the most famous metal band of all time. Like, you know what I mean? Like, some people haven't even heard of Iron Maiden and Judas Priest, and I know that's very hard to believe, but some people haven't heard of those two bands.
Yeah,
everybody's heard of Metallica.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at the dates too, like the Black Album was 91, and Load and Reload is 96, 97. So there's a little bit of time between that for them to kind of redo their sound. I like Fuel. They play it live. I mean, it is a fan favorite, and I think that's one of the few songs, like especially on Reload, the first few tracks of that album are awesome, and then I just lose total interest.
Let me just go into my little thoughts on Load. House That Jack Built is one of my favorite songs on that album. I think it's groovy and evil and just down and dirty. I really like that song. And a guilty pleasure song from that album is Ain't My Bitch. I love that song. And
it's too blues. Like all this shit is
King
too
Nothing
bluesy.
is a great song off that album. King Nothing is probably the best song on that album. 2x4, I don't even know what they were thinking.
Yeah, dude. Like I was telling you, I listened to these before we did this just to refresh my mind, and I was so shocked at some of the sound. Like they're so un-Metallica like, There's no, like, if you go back in their earlier stuff, there's so much to sink your teeth into each song. There's sections that repeat. There's sections that are so beautiful that you just want to listen to 5 minutes of a song just to hear that one part. And a lot of these later stuff, Load, Reload, little bit of the Black Album, just, they're kind of like, it's like, we're going to do verse, chorus, verse, chorus, end it. It's like there's no reason to kind of go back.
I feel like during this era, James Hetfield himself, and I'm not James Hetfield. I do not know James Hetfield. These are just my opinions.
And let's bring in our guest. We have James Hetfield right now.
What's going on? Let's talk about Metallica.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'm not even ready for this. I'm not James Hetfield.
Oh, yeah.
Are you ready? I'm not ready.
Ooh.
My favorite part of Fuel is that part where he slows down when the music slows. Favorite part of the song. But I feel like during this time in the 90s, he wanted to do a blues side project. And was afraid to be like, hey, I want to step away from Metallica and do my own thing. But James Hetfield is Metallica. So if he leaves Metallica, what's the rest of the band? The rest of the band goes on hiatus. So I don't think they didn't want that to happen. And if you watch the Saint Anger documentary,
Some
which
Kind
I
of Monster.
absolutely love. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
It's really good.
James Hetfield had problems with Jason Newsted wanting to do his own thing.
Mhm.
And that's a control issue. Group therapy, they went through it. It happens. But like I said, I'm not these people. I can't properly explain what was going through their heads at the time. But
dude, you're a fucking musician. You're an artist. You're going to want to do different stuff. It's just, it sucks for being a fan. That's the hardest part of being a musician. You have fans who want you to do certain things. And if you keep doing the same thing that fans love, they want you to do something else. And when you do something else, fans hate it.
Well,
and
yeah.
God, I mean, do we have a lot to talk about with the next one? But
what was I going to say? Don't get me wrong. These two albums have their fans. They have huge fan bases for these two albums. And I will tell you that there's a lot of songs on Reload that I love. Devil's Dance is just another evil, like, spooky track. That bass riff at the beginning of it, just great. Prince Charming, which I actually really loved. It had like a real Southern style to it. I really liked that. And Where the Wild Things Are is a really underrated song for them. I like that one. And Bad Seed is on that album. Slither is on that album. There's a lot of really underrated songs on Reload that I really liked. In my opinion, I think they're underrated.
I would listen to that album way before Load.
And I do. I do exactly what you said. I would listen to Reload over Load any day. Yeah.
Let's move on to a fan favorite here. That is the Trash Can album, 2003's Saint Anger. Most notably, people don't even want to talk about anything about the album. They just want to talk about Lars's snare tone.
Yeah, have you ever heard that? I actually used it in my last video. That slamming tin sound that's in iMovie.
I don't have iMovie.
Hit it with a hammer.
No, I don't know.
It was in my last video where my Facebook thing popped up and it was like a trash can lid.
Okay.
That's exactly what his freaking. I understand that he was going for a more gritty sound, and other than that snare drum, his drums. Excuse me, I'm spitting everywhere. His drums are pretty heavy, James.
Dude.
Breakdowns are heavy.
Look, I'm actually happy that you're talking this way because I was going to tell you I actually really like this album a lot.
It has its fans too. I'm not going to lie.
Personally, though, I have an interesting story on why I like it. It's not interesting, actually, so don't get your hopes up. But
I'm going to check out here.
This is the only Metallica album that came out when I was interested in music. So when I saw Saint Anger on TV and I watched the video, I went out and got the album, and I like it. And I like nu metal, so this album is so nu metal.
That's what they were going for.
Yeah, dude. The guitars tuned low down. Lars's drums tuned low down. The songs are a bit repetitive for me, but I actually like Hetfield's vocals on it. I like the melodies. It's very simple. It's so simple. But
he went to another level on Frantic.
Oh.
Probably one of the best songs on the album.
Agreed. Super heavy.
Yeah. And I actually, one of the things that really got me into liking this album is the documentary. Because I really like seeing that behind the scenes story. I used to love VH1's Behind the Music.
Yeah.
I like hearing about, these awesome bands and like backstory. Metallica is a band that released 4 albums or 3 albums before they even released a music video. So it's you're finally getting to see this personal life of this band that you've listened to your entire life and know almost nothing about.
Yeah, it gives the Some Kind of Monster gives some context to the album, so when you actually listen to it, you're not totally thrown off. Like you mentioned earlier, they had group therapy. They fought. Sometimes like people wouldn't even show up to the studio. They'd leave during the middle. But if you watch the movie, the garage sessions are really awesome. Like they're really raw. That. Yeah. I'm actually surprised you like this one.
They did. They redid that again. When we go to the next album, Death Magnetic, they did the Mission Metallica videos.
Are we skipping Garage Inc.?
No.
Okay.
I actually do want to talk about that
We'll
because
do that one last.
we can do it now. Doesn't matter to me.
Let's
This is the first episode, people.
Let's do it now. I mean, I have literally two things to say about it. Love the Misfits cover, love the Minor Threat cover, and I don't listen to anything else from it.
I actually like the covers from the 90s era on the second album. The Merciful Fate. Their covers of Merciful Fate. Their covers of these three. This song is 15 minutes long. 3 Merciful Fate covers.
If you guys
combined in one song, it is awesome.
You guys can't see it now, but Zach has King Diamond face paint on right now, actually.
Yes, I do. It's pretty awesome. It took me about 20 minutes to get it on right, and it's going to look like I'm wearing mascara when I go out later, but I'm okay with that.
You know, I mean, it's a cool idea that Metallica covered songs, but, like, to be honest, I don't know. Like, it's just weird to me.
I like the was it Danzig cover of Die My Darling?
Yeah, it was I think it's the Misfits.
Was that Misfits?
Yeah.
I love that song. It's really short.
Yeah, it's fast. It's good.
I really like that cover. It's electric. That is a great cover. I thought that was great. The Turn the Page cover.
It's a bit I don't know. It's just a bit comical for me. Like
I just like the Metallica slowing down and doing a song like that, and having it still, you know, remind you of the music that you liked from the original. They covered Black Sabbath on that album too. Whiskey in the Jar.
I can see them wanting to why they would want to do this. You know, it's like it's refreshing. It's always fun to not do your own stuff. You know.
And I will never, I don't think I'll ever be able to find this video again, but I found it on YouTube a very long time ago of Metallica performing Merciful Fate live. And it was like this really intimate showing. It was a very small stage. Just imagine the Snake Pit and just the Snake Pit. And they were performing Merciful Fate, which is like a 15-minute long song. And they performed the entire thing live. It was awesome.
That's pretty sick.
Those tickets were probably $500 a person, guarantee it.
Let's
do the next album.
Let's do Death Magnetic now. This is from 2008. I actually bought this album. Aside from the cover album looking a little bit too sexual for me.
Coffin, you didn't like that?
It's what's around the coffin that kind of makes me and also the fact that the album was like die cut, so inside of it, like it was like multiple layers of the coffin.
Yeah, so you got the special edition. You didn't get the regular version, which is just the coffin and a coffin. The coffin. I'm thinking about Batman right now, and we're talking about Metallica in the regular jewel case.
Yeah,
I got special edition too.
Did you? Yeah, so nicely made album, but to be honest, weird structure of the songs, but what stands out to me the most, why I can't listen to it, I would listen to St. Anger's production over Death Magnetic. Death Magnetic is so loud. It hurts it rattles my headphones.
I think that's what they were going for.
It's overproduced.
There's something, Rick Rubin is the person at fault for that one. They fired Bob Rock after their last album. Before that, Black Magnetic, Saint Anger, which has a really underrated cover. I like that cover with the fist.
Oh, beautiful.
I like the album. I think it's great, and there's a funny story here where my cousins, okay, 2 metalhead cousins, Jason and Troy. They both love Megadeth. Not Megadeth. They both love Metallica, okay? One loves Death Magnetic, and one hates Death Magnetic.
Okay.
And seeing them talk about it is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And they constantly get into this argument all the time. Like, every time I see them, they're like, that album, it's terrible, it's too loud, I don't understand. the strings sound like rubber bands. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And that would be Jason, and Troy would be like, "Well, they came back after saying Anger, and that was a piece of shit album." I loved it, but I like that they went back to their more progressive ways from Injustice for All, and even Lars Ulrich and Jim Hetfield said that.
I will agree with you on that. It's definitely going back to thrash. They got a little bit more technical, a little bit more melodic as well. I mean, have you listened to it recently? Yes.
I just listened to it yesterday, getting ready for the podcast. Fair enough. One thing I do want to say about Hardwired to Self-Destruct before we get into the final portion of the podcast, which I'm not going to ruin for anybody, even though we've almost ruined it a couple times. I like the fact that Metallica put out a single that radio stations will not air. You can't air that song on the radio. You can't say those words on the radio. So, for them to put that one out as their first one, saying that, hey, we're back, we're brash, and deal with it. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? There's 2 words in that song that will not sound right covered up on the radio.
Wait, hold on. What song are you talking about?
Hardwired to Self-Destruct. I wanted to go back to that before we went to the next part.
I thought we were still on Death Night Neck. I was like, wait a second. There's like
just remember,
is there a hidden meaning?
Yeah.
Well, dude, I think I'm not sure where I heard it for the first time, but I want to say I first heard it on like XM radio or something. Like the fact that it played there and like I heard it, or like YouTube. That's the thing. They totally know their audience, and this is coming from a band who was actively against Napster. Yeah. And I think it's cool that like they now know the geography of music right now. And I think, dude, you're so right. You're talking about the shit out of luck line, right?
We're fucked.
Yeah.
You can't say that on the radio. The only place you can say that is YouTube or XM radio, because they do not censor the songs on XM radio.
Yeah.
They do on regular radio.
Well, you can do the edited version, which is your sit on luck, your something about ducks or something.
You can't even fucking remember what it is. That's like if they censored our podcast and I said, "What the fruit is going on in here?" every time I say "fuck," which we're not allowed to say on YouTube anymore.
Well, we're not monetizing this. I mean, you can.
Fuck,
depending on which channel you're listening to this on. By the way, this album is a 12-track album, double disc.
Yeah,
that's kind of cool.
I'm really excited, and that really helps reassure me that this album is not going to be terrible, because it took them so long to get this album together. We're looking at, besides that horrendous collaboration they did with Lou Reed, this is their first album in a very long time.
Yeah,
I think this is almost longer than their hiatus from Load and the Black Album.
Granted, they've been touring this whole time, and like it's not like they're coming back for the first time, but it is pretty awesome that we're getting a new Metallica album. Meanwhile, I mean, this is kind of to segue into the next segment.
Other bands have been releasing music.
Yeah, right, dude, Slayer just put out a new album. Megadeth has put out like 3-4 albums.
Since Death Magnetic.
Anthrax put out that recent album. So yeah, bring us into the next topic.
All right. So are you ready? Are you ready for the next part? I don't think anybody's ready.
This is an old wives' tale. This is an old fucking argument that everyone's been having. So we're just gonna do it now.
We have 15 minutes to talk about it. Okay, so here it is. You're going to hear it from Zach and Tim. This is Metallica versus Megadeth. Which one's better?
Oh, yeah. That's my Dave Mustaine impression.
Hi, I'm Dave Mustaine.
Hello, me.
Meet the real me. I love that song, too. It's actually in my 7-Day Quest video.
I remember that, yeah. it's you and your daughter listening to it in the car, right?
Yeah, we're going to Second and Charles, going past Walmart.
Yeah.
I almost lost my mind doing the 7-day video. That was very ambitious. So much caffeine was going through my body at the time. It was pretty bad. But
where do you stand?
Where do I stand on Metallica versus Megadeth?
You have to choose one. There's no in between.
But what if we choose the same band?
Well, shit. Actually, that's true. I'll tell you right now. I like Megadeth more.
Gonna have to go with Megadeth too. But
we got reasons.
But I'll go with Metallica so we can have a little bit of diversity here. But I will also give you my thoughts on why I like Megadeth.
Okay.
But you can go first because I'm very outspoken about my love of Megadeth. So you go ahead and go first.
So there's a reason why I don't listen to a lot of hip hop and pop music, because I like structure and technicality, and I like to be entertained when I'm listening to music. And the more repetitive things are, the less I'm tuned in to listening to it. And unfortunately for me, sometimes Metallica can be a little bit too simple. And Megadeth for me is that cure. Megadeth is like, if you want to hear, and I'm capital P bolded, phenomenal lead guitar from both guitarists. And I'm not.
Which second?
I know that's the thing. It's like
We'll get into that.
I have no idea who's who, but all I know is that if you want to hear amazing guitar solos, amazing song structure, fast, aside from Risk.
No one talks about Risk.
I have to always just Megadeth hits the spot. I will say I like earlier stuff. I like Rust in Peace and Cryptic Writings and Euthanasia and United Abominations. But up until
taking to my heart, Tim. But my heart here.
But then, like, I don't know. For me, like, their later stuff doesn't really do it for me. But Dystopia was really, really sick. So
this guy right here.
Yeah. I know I'm preaching to the choir right now. Metallica for me. This is just in closing why I didn't pick them. Too simple. I like that they're melodic. Metallica doesn't. Megadeth doesn't have a lot of melodic stuff. They have their ballads here and there, but Metallica just doesn't hold my interest sometimes. It doesn't do it for me. But Megadeth doesn't get as heavy and crunchy as Metallica.
I would go Head Crusher, Endgame.
Oh, that was a great return.
Endgame, you want me to just get into Metallica Please. Here? And then I'll go into Megadeth? Like I said, I wasn't always a fan of Metallica. I was never a fan of Megadeth up until a few years ago.
Really?
Yeah. After Megadeth came out, after Death Magnetic came out, my friend introduced me, like same friend, introduced me to the new, at the time, Megadeth album. And he was like, dude, you think Death Magnetic's awesome? Check out this song. And he played Head Crusher from Endgame. I was like, oh my God, they're blowing them out of the water. This album is fucking amazing. And it is, in my opinion, a thrash metal masterpiece.
Agreed. I mean, the opening track, what a fucking beginning.
That fucking instrumental into This Day We Fight, which is about Lord of the Rings, by the way. Yeah, tell Dave Mustaine he's not a nerd. He loves Lord of the Rings. That is one of the best transitions from a fucking this is a podcast. I can say what I want. Because I try not to do that in my reviews. Try to keep it classy.
It's a metal podcast.
Yeah. Fuck metal. Metal sucks. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, it was just an amazing transition from that heavy hitting instrumental to that song, "This Day We Fight," and 1, 2, 3, 4. Endgame, which is a great song. The really slow song on there that starts out with classical guitars in the perfect guitar player to do that is Chris Broderick. Chris Broderick was in the band since United Abominations till this last album. He wasn't on Dystopia, but his last album with them was Super Collider, which we will also not talk about.
No. And the album artwork we'll not talk about either. God. Are we talking about 13 as well?
We can talk about 13, but let me just get into Metallica real quick before I forget. Metallica for me is really up until the Black Album is classic Metallica, and I think they were at their best on Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets. Mm-hmm. And I would even include Injustice for All in there if it had that bumped up bass, because I think that album is really, really good. And I'm not going to say it's underrated because it has a lot of fans. Mm-hmm. And Metallica for me is that heavy, just fucking epic riffs. And I can ask anyone to try to describe Metallica. Describe their sound, because you can't. It's almost impossible
to nail them
in one genre. It sounds like Metallica. There is no other band besides maybe Trivium that sounds like Metallica.
Yeah, and Trivium gets criticized for it, so you can't even use it.
Like, you're copying them, blah, blah, blah. No. But then that's why I would love Metallica, because no other band sounds like that. You can say that there are a ton of bands, like I said in this podcast, Black Tide sounds like Megadeth. Any guy that can do arpeggiated, chords and stuff like that can sound like Megadeth. But not everyone can sound like Dave Mustaine.
No, see, just like you said earlier, without James Hetfield, there's no Metallica. Without Dave Mustaine, there's no Megadeth. But I will actually agree with you that Megadeth is easier to replicate. Metallica also just their I don't know what they do, but their guitar tone, it's crunchy. I was listening to an interview with Devin Townsend, and
his new album
he learned how to
amazing, by the way.
I'm not into the project. I just like no, sorry, I'm not into Devin Townsend. I like Devin Townsend.
Yeah, the new project, Transcendence. Have you heard Failure yet?
Wait. Oh no, it's the opposite. Whatever's the heavier one I like. I don't like
Devin
the
Townsend
softer. Okay. I haven't heard it then. No.
You have, oh my God, when you finish this, guys, and I'm telling to the fans, anyone watching this podcast, check out Failure from Devin Townsend Project. It blows Z2 out of the water.
Ooh, well, Z2, I only listened to the first album.
The thing that I love the most about that album is the cover art for DTP versus Z2.
They're both running together.
That's the cover art. I love the cover art more than the actual album, and that's a bad thing, man.
Honestly, we gotta wrap it up, but Ziltoid is a fucking sick album.
It's
first Ziltoid.
It's just a colossal shame that Z2 isn't as good as the first one.
Yeah,
and with real instruments and everything, I thought it would be better.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
than it was.
For those that don't know, he recorded Ziltoid, the Omniscient, on with Easy Drummer. All in his house by himself.
It's amazing.
So final thoughts. Do you have any final thoughts on Metallica versus Megadeth?
I actually wanted to give my thoughts on on Megadeth really quick. Let me just knock this out real quick. Like I said, I was a big Metallica fan, and then all of a sudden I discovered Megadeth. Endgame. Fucking awesome album. It's brilliant. I love the tone. I loved the guitar work on the album. Dave Mustaine's voice never sounded better on that.
He's getting old too.
He is getting old. And I will give you another reason to watch that Big Four concert. Him live, that concert is the best I've ever heard him sing live.
Really?
And yeah, and I've listened to subsequent performances, and they're not as good. Mm-hmm. I think it might have been the environment and all those guys together, and he was just in the zone. But that lineup on that album is great, and you can go through Metallica or Megadeth's discography. Nick Menza was their drummer for the longest time. Not the drummer on the first album, the drummer for the subsequent three. Mm-hmm. Marty Freeman is unbelievable. All he does is play in Japan with Japanese musicians. I don't know what he's doing. It's weird. He almost here is a very strange and sad thing. Before Dystopia came out, I forget his name. The rhythm guitar player in Slayer died.
Oh, not Kerry King.
I forget his last name. That's so sad. But the point is, he died, and Dave Mustaine was like, "Oh, well, we got to live life to the fullest here." So he reached out.
Jeff Hanneman, sorry.
He reached out to Nick Menza and Marty Freeman, and he said, "Hey, I want you guys to come in and play on this new album. I want you to play with me in the original bass player." Forget his name right now. I should know it. But he wanted the original, like the main Megadeth lineup on Dystopia. And I'm not familiar with the guitar player, the new one that they have. I was more familiar with Chris Broderick from, being the backup guitar player in Nevermore, which is another strange story because Jeff Loomis auditioned for Megadeth way back in the day and didn't get it because he was too young. Huh. And then his backup touring guitar player actually got into Megadeth, which is weird. But then, the fact that they almost had the original lineup, the Holy Wars, the fucking Rust in Peace lineup on this new CD is great. But
and the CD sound, dude.
It's so good.
If you never knew, what was the album right before Endgame?
The album right before Endgame was United Abominations.
Okay, so that's a pretty heavy album, pretty fast.
Yes.
If you never knew that they had Endgame 13 Super Collider, and you just heard Dystopia, dude.
You'd think it came out right after that one.
Dude, Dystopia was raw. It was unique. It sounded just like them. Heavy too. Really
heavy. But at the same time.
Super Collider was what's the one that he produced with David Draymond? Was that?
I can't remember the name of the song.
So
it's that album though.
That's actually a pretty good song.
It's not a bad album. I will say that Super Collider is not a bad album. I think if it would have came out from another band that's not as popular as Megadeth, it probably would have received a lot more praise.
Yeah.
But knowing that Megadeth is capable of a lot more, it was kind of like a album.
Yeah, Megadeth needs to work with someone to write better album titles because they're terrible album titles. Like Rust in Peace is sick. Peace sells, but who's buying? That's a sick album title. And then you have like just 13 with a 1-3 in it. Come on.
And it's their 13th album.
Yeah, come on.
Okay. The only thing that would have sold that better if it came out on like Friday the 13th or something like that,
Yeah.
Like, hey, let's make this 13 the biggest thing. Let's like do a subliminal marketing campaign with like a whole bunch of like short vignettes of 13.
That would have been
13
sick.
On their equipment, like everything.
Dude, anything would have been better. The only thing I want to end this with is one thing I might have you on as an argument. Metallica doesn't have a mascot. We got Vic Rattlehead for Megadeth.
Metallica does have a mascot.
Who?
The M. The Metallica M. They have their own font. All right. All right, that's kind of a moot argument because Megadeth has their own font too. But
I'm not talking about font. I mean, Megadeth has their own font.
T-shirts. They've made T-shirts with just the Metallica M on it.
Yeah, so, you can't dress up as an M at the concert, can you?
Oh, I can. I will make an M costume and I will wear it.
That's a really good Halloween costume.
An M.
Metallica.
I will dress up as James Hetfield for Halloween. Actually, I'm going as Vincent Price.
Just get a soul patch, man. That's all you need.
Well, I'd have to burn half my face and not be able to grow a full beard anymore. I'm sorry, James, if you heard that. I know you didn't, but it's a tragic accident to have have an accident like that. If no one remembers, it's the early '90s, right after the Black Album came out. He accidentally stepped into pyrotechnics and horrible burns to his face, arms, and chest. So, I mean, it's a tragic accident, just like the earlier one to them, and it really hindered them for a long time.
It didn't hinder his voice, though. Him and Dave Mustaine both sound really, really great. So this was a awesome first episode. I'm really looking forward to doing another one of these soon because there's so much to talk about.
I picked the subject of this one. So let's put you on the spot, Tim. What is going to be the next one?
I already got it. We're gonna talk all core bands. So deathcore. We can do progressive metal, like Between the Buried and Me, stuff like that. So next episode will be all that new age type of evolution of metal, the more technical stuff.
Yeah,
so breakdowns.
The first episode is probably the most metal band of all time. Yep. Metallica is just everyone's introduction to metal. It's the gateway metal band, Metallica. And that is the first perfect thing to cover on the first podcast. So, and I'm completely down for the next idea. We actually talked about it before. Let's see if I'm a good actor or not. But that's a great idea for the next one, and I hope you guys tune in for the next episode.
Yes.
So, where can everyone find you at?
If you're listening to this on Zach's channel, you can find me at TheLateReviews on YouTube. It's youtube.com/TheLateReviews1. And then Zach, if they're listening to it on my channel, where can I find you?
You can find me at Zach versus the Blu-ray Mountain on YouTube. I know it's really hard to to find sometimes. It's Zach, all caps, versus lowercase, the, with a capital T, Blu-ray Mountain on YouTube. You can find me at MallZach on Twitter. You can find me at Zach versus the Blu-ray Mountain on Instagram. And you can also find me at Zach the TBM, all caps, on Letterboxd. I know I only have a couple of reviews on there, but I've been using it a little bit more. So you can find me on Letterboxd as well.
Seriously, check out Zach's shit. His From the Shelf reviews are some of my favorite stuff. Because one thing that is like the same thing is that like we all love movies, but it's like movies translate so well to music. So hopefully you guys got that from this podcast and you're excited for the next episode.
Yep. And another thing about Tim's channel, Tim used to do quick movie reviews, and I absolutely loved these. Some of the first ones that I ever saw from him was Freddy vs. Jason, which is a great review. Frankenstein's Army was the first video that I ever saw from him. And I just like his style a lot more. It's more laid back, and I like that you do the fisheye camera. It's a different style. I haven't seen too many people do that, but his addition of music in the background, I just can't quite nail it yet on mine. So
I like your end. I like your end music. I'm always like, you're
into it at the end. Yeah. I just found that like royalty-free music. I was like, this is fucking perfect.
That's royalty-free shit.
Yeah, that's royalty-free.
All right, guys. We'll see you in the next episode, whenever that may be, and we'll be talking deathcore and all core music. So, thanks for listening, guys.
Stay metal, my friends.
Oh yeah.